ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जायमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामीनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto 4, Chapter 11, Svāyambhuva Manu advises Dhruva Mahārāja. So we are in the section, text 6 to 14, where Svāyambhuva Manu is advising Dhruva Mahārāja here. Text 14. Samprasanne Bhagavati Purusha Prakritairgunaihi Vimukto Jivanirmukto Brahma Nirvana Mrichati. Translation.
One who actually satisfies the Supreme Personality of Godhead during one's lifetime becomes liberated from the gross and subtle material conditions, thus being freed from all material modes of nature. He achieves unlimited spiritual bliss. Purport. In the previous verse, it has been explained that one should treat all living entities with tolerance, mercy, friendship, and equality. By such behavior, one satisfies the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and upon his satisfaction, the devotee immediately becomes free from all material conditions. The Lord also confirms this in the Bhagavad Gita. Anyone who sincerely and seriously engages in my service immediately becomes situated in the transcendental stage wherein he can enjoy unlimited spiritual bliss. Everyone in this material world is struggling hard in order to achieve blissful life. Unfortunately, people do not know how to achieve it. Atheists do not believe in God, and certainly they do not please Him. Here it is clearly said that upon pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one immediately attains to the spiritual platform and enjoys unlimited blissful life. To become free from material existence means to become free from the influence of material nature. The word samprasanne, which is used in this verse, means being satisfied. A person should act in such a way that the Lord is satisfied by the activity. It is not that he himself is to be satisfied. Of course, when the Lord is satisfied, the devotee automatically becomes satisfied. This is the secret of the process of Bhakti Yoga. Outside of Bhakti Yoga, everyone is trying to satisfy himself. No one is trying to satisfy the Lord. Karmis grossly try to satisfy their senses. But even those who are elevated to the platform of knowledge also try to satisfy themselves in a subtle form. Karmis try to satisfy themselves by sense gratification, and Gyanis try to satisfy themselves by subtle activities or mental speculation, and thinking themselves to be the God. Yogis also try to satisfy themselves by thinking that they can achieve different mystic perfections. But only devotees try to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The devotee's process of self realization is completely different from the processes of the karmis, jnanis, and the yogis. Everyone else is trying to satisfy himself, whereas the devotee tries to only to satisfy the Lord. The devotional process is completely different from the others. By working to please the Lord, by engaging his senses in the Lord's loving service, the devotee is immediately situated on the transcendental platform and he enjoys unlimited blissful life. Hare Krishna.
Manu Maharaj is further instructing that one who is actually satisfying the Supreme becomes liberated from the gross and subtle material conditions and thus becomes free from the material modes of nature, thus achieving the unlimited spiritual bliss. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada describes that the previous verse we have seen, one has to treat the living entities with utmost compassion, with tolerance, mercy, friendship, and equality. Titikshaya, karunaya, maitrya cha akhila jantushu, samatvena cha sarvatma, bhagavan samprasidati. And this is the way to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's why in Bhagavad Gita also, Surdas Sarva Bhutana, these words will come again and again in Bhagavad Gita. Because Srila Prabhupada explains that the universal brotherhood can be established only upon accepting the universal fatherhood of the Supreme Lord. Aham Bija Pradha Pita. The Supreme Lord is Bija Pradha Pita to all living entities. And you cannot please the father, especially one dominant son is exploiting other children of the, other his brothers and sisters. So therefore, Bhagavad Gita says that when one's behavior towards other living entities improve, that also leads to the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. Bhagavan samprasidati. How Bhagavan will know? Because he is Sarvatma, he is Paramatma, he is in the heart of every living entity. And thus, he will understand this. And this stage in Bhagavad Gita is referred as Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma. Otherwise, Prabhupada says here, everybody in the material world is struggling. People do not know that they are struggling, but they are struggling. And it is only upon the pleasing the Supreme Lord one becomes situated on the spiritual platform. So essentially, to become free from the material existence means to become free from the influence of the material nature. What is Prakriti? Right? Bhagavad Gita talks about Ishvara Jiva, Kala, Karma, and Prakriti. What is Prakriti? Prakriti is three modes of material nature. Daivihesha Gunamai. So, Daivihesha Gunamai. Guna means three modes of material nature. Mama māyā Durattaya. So, Prakriti means the three modes of material nature. And when one is situated in devotional service, one will automatically cross over this difficult māyā or material nature. Further, Srila Prabhupada explains Samprasanne. Samprasanne means for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. So there are various ways and there are various personalities. There are karmis, jnanis, yogis, and bhaktas. So karmis are grossly materialistic. They are trying to satisfy their senses and the body. Whereas jnanis, yogis, and bhaktas, they are termed as transcendentalist. Right? But while karmis are trying to satisfy their senses, jnanis are trying to satisfy their mind through mental speculation and by subtle activities, thinking themselves to be God. Aham Brahmasmi, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahmam. So this is how they are trying to cheat themselves. This is the jnanis. So they are trying to satisfy themselves. Yogis are also trying to satisfy themselves by the virtue of trying to obtain some mystic powers. Anima, Laghima, Prapti, Kama Vashayita, so on and so forth. And therefore, all these personalities will have some dissatisfaction within themselves. Right? Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakale Ashanta Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Atheva Shanta. But why the devotee of the Lord? Prabhupada says the process of the devotee is completely different than the process of all these three others, karmis, jnanis, and yogis. Because while karmis, jnanis, and yogis are trying to satisfy themselves, devotees are trying to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevanam. So, this is the process of devotional service. And therefore, we may take on some austerity for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, but the body may suffer. See, satisfy generally means satisfying the body, gross or subtle, right? Karmis are satisfying gross body, jnanis are satisfying subtler body, the mind, yogis are satisfying even the subtler body, ahankar. So, in case of a devotee, his gross body may suffer because of yajnadana tapadibi, but his soul is completely satisfied. Suprasidati, right? And this is the process of devotional service. Next, we enter the third section of this chapter, text 15 to 26. Understanding the ultimate cause is the Supreme Lord. So he's saying that, my dear Dhruva, although yes, one Yaksha killed your one brother, but please understand what is the ultimate cause. And that Manu Maharaj is going to describe this in 10 powerful verses. Text 15. भूतैः पञ्चवीरारब्धैः योषित् पुरुष एव हि तयो व्यावसयत् सम्भूतिं योषित् पुरुषयो इह. Translation.
The creation of the material world begins with the 5 elements, and thus everything, including the body of a man or a woman, is created of these elements. By the sexual life of man and woman, the number of men and women in this material world is further increased. Purport. When Svāyambhuva Manu saw that Dhruva Mahārāja understood the philosophy of Vaishnavism and yet was still dissatisfied because of his brother's death, he gave him an explanation of how this material world is created by the 5 elements of material nature. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is also confirmed, Prakritiha Kriyamanani. Everything is created, maintained, and annihilated by the material modes of nature. In the background, of course, there is the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, māyā. In the 9th chapter, Krishna says, under my superintendence, material nature is acting. Svayambhuva Manu wanted to impress on Dhruva Mahārāja that the death of the material body of his brother was not actually the Yakṣas' fault. It was an act of the material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has immense varieties of potencies, and they act in different gross and subtle ways. It is by such powerful potencies that the universe is created. Although grossly it appears to be no more than the 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Similarly, the bodies of all species of living entities, whether human beings, demigods, animals, or birds, are also created by the same 5 elements, and by sensual union, they expand into more and more living entities. That is the way of creation, maintenance, and annihilation. One should not be disturbed by the waves of material nature in this process. Dhruva Mahārāja was indirectly advised not to be afflicted by the death of his brother because our relationship with the body is completely material. The real self, spirit, soul is never annihilated or killed by anyone.
So now further, Manu Maharaj explains that the creation of the material world begins with the Pancha Mahabhut. And everything, including this man or woman, the body. So the soul is man or soul is woman. Soul is spirit soul, right? Soul is neither man, soul is neither woman. Soul is neither tiger, lion, cockroach, or elephant, or cow, or a snake. That those are just the bodily coverings upon the soul. That's why we have this verse, right? Vidya vinaya sampanne, brahmane gavihastini, shuni chaiva shvapake cha pandita samadarshana. And therefore, seeing on the platform of the soul, Pandita can see them equally, although he behaves with them differently, right? And these bodies are expanded by the further interaction of these bodies, and this is how the material world is expanded. Material creation is expanded. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that Dhruva Mahārāja understood the philosophy of Vaishnavism, yet he was still dissatisfied because of the death of his own brother. And therefore, Manu is now giving explanation on how the material body is created. And the way material body is created, similarly, by the interactions of the Prakriti, material body will be destroyed. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai sarvani sarvashaha ahankara vimudhatma karta ahamiti manyate. That the material world, material bodies are created by the interactions of 3 modes of material nature. And similarly, material bodies will be destroyed by interactions of 3 modes of material nature. So Svayambhuva Manu, he wanted to impress on Dhruva Mahārāja that the death of the material body of his brother is not same as his brother has died, because the brother as the soul is always living, right? There is na hanyate hanyamane sharire. Although the sharir is finished, the sharire dehinosmin yatha dehe, the soul within the body is never annihilated or killed by anyone. So Srila Prabhupada further explains that the powerful material energy and the potencies of the Supreme Lord, the entire universe is created. But actually it is just created with the 5 gross elements and 3 subtle elements. But these interactions happen so powerfully that one is completely mesmerized by the interaction. Just like, for example, India is parsec nowadays with that film Dhurandhar. What is Dhurandhar? If you analytically understand the film is, this is just 3 colors and Saptasur, right? Just 3 colors, RYB, red, yellow, black. They are just projected. The 3 light beams of red, yellow, black, they are projected on the screen. Sa re ga ma pa da ni sa is all the, entire music can be summarized to the Saptasur. So 3 colors and the 7 notes of the music, and the whole world is mesmerized, right? So similarly, these are the 5 gross elements, 3 subtle elements, and these interactions happen in such a way, and therefore here Manu Mahārāja is explaining, my dear Dhruva, ahankara vimūdatma, neither you are the karta, neither you are the annihilator, so do not aggrieve for the loss of the body. Right. Text 16. Evam pravartate sargaha. Just one second. Sthiti sanyama evacha guna vyatikarat rajan māyā paramatmanah. Translation.
Manu continued, my dear King Dhruva, it is simply by the illusory material energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and by the interaction of the 3 modes of material nature that creation, maintenance, and annihilation take place. Purport. First, creation takes place with the ingredients of the 5 elements of material nature. Then, by the interaction of the modes of material nature, maintenance also takes place. When a child is born, the parents immediately see to its maintenance. This tendency for maintenance of offspring is present not only in human society but in animal society as well. Even tigers care for their cubs, although their propensity is to eat other animals. By the interaction of the material modes of nature, creation, maintenance, and also annihilation take place inevitably. But at the same time, we should know that all is conducted under the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything is going on under that process. Creation is the action of the Rajoguna, the mode of passion. Maintenance is the action of Sattva-guna, the mode of goodness, and annihilation is the action of Tamoguna, the mode of ignorance. We can see that those who are situated in the mode of goodness live longer than those who are situated in the Tamoguna or Rajoguna. In other words, if one is elevated to the mode of goodness, he is elevated to a higher planetary system, where the duration of life is very great. Urdhvam gacchati sattvastaha. Great rishis, sages, and sannyasis who maintain themselves in sattva guna or the mode of material goodness are elevated to a higher planetary system. Those who are transcendental even to the material modes of nature are situated in the mode of pure goodness. They attain eternal life in the spiritual world. Hare Krishna.
Now Svayambhuva Manu explains, my dear Rajan, Guna Vyatikarat Rajan. He's saying, oh my dear king. So you are King Dhruva, you are supposed to be knowing the Raja Dharma. It is simply by the illusory material energy and the interactions of 3 modes, there is Srishti, Sthiti, and Vilaya. Right? Sarga, Sthiti, Sanyama, Evahi. That all this creation, maintenance, and annihilation is taking place. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that first, the creation takes place by the 3 modes of material nature. That we have seen. Prakriti kriyamanani, gunai sarvani karmani sarvashah. Ahankara vimūdatma karta ahamiti manyate. He thinks he is the karta. But actually, it is the Rajoguna who is doing the karta. He is the karta. And then by the interactions of the three modes of material nature, the maintenance also will take place. And by the interaction of the three modes of material nature, specifically tamoguna, the annihilation will take place. Somebody may say, if we are so helpless that the modes are only acting through me, but we are responsible. Although we may be helpless, but in that helplessness there is a choice. What is the choice? Choice to choose the mode in which we are going to interact, and then the modes are going to take over, right? And therefore modes are going to affect not only the condition in this life but also the next life. If we operate in sattva-guna, certain things will happen in this life and next life. Similarly with rajoguna and tamoguna. What is the meaning of operating in sattva-guna? That simply means that whatever is happening to us, right, the instances in our life may be destined by our previous karma, but our reaction to those instances, they are under our control. And living entity is para prakriti, is the superior to the material nature. And however distracting the three modes of material nature are, the material nature, the living entity has the free will to cross over and choose the mode in which he is supposed to operate. Viktor Frankl, in his beautiful book, the In Search of Meaning of Life, he says the same thing, calls this as a logotherapy. That between stimulus and response, there is a free space. That momentary choice that one can make, and thus one can choose a completely different route, of, the completely different path out of the same calamity. So, and this affects, and this is precisely Bhagavad Gita calls a response in sattvagun, rajogun, or tamogun. So not only this life will be affected by this response, even the next life. Urdhvam gacchanti sattvastha. If one is situated in mode of goodness, the next destination one will receive which is on the higher planets. Madhye tishtanti rajasa. Those who are situated in rajoguna. What is meaning of situated in the rajoguna? The actions or the reactions are in rajoguna. Jagannaguna vrittistha adho gacchanti tamasa. Whereas if the actions and reactions are in tamoguna, what will happen is we will degrade our existence to lower subhuman species and entering some animal species of the life. And if one is performing in Sattvaguna and one is performing devotional service, one will transcend this entire samsara chakra of Sattva, Rajas, Tama, and one will become transcendental and will attain the eternal life in spiritual world of Vaikuntha. Text 17. Nimittamatram tatrasit nirguna purusharshava Vyaktadavyktadidam vishvam yatra brahmati lohavat. Translation.
My dear Dhruva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. He is the remote cause of the creation of this material cosmic manifestation. When he gives the impetus, many other causes and effects are produced, and thus the whole universe moves, just as iron moves by the integrated force of a magnet. Purport. How the external energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead works within this material world is explained in this verse. Everything is happening by the energy of the Supreme Lord. The atheistic philosophers who do not agree to accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the original cause of creation think that the material world moves by the action and reaction of different material elements. A simple example of the interaction of elements occurs when we mix soda and acid, and the movement of effervescence is produced. But one cannot produce life by such interactions of chemicals. There are 8.4 million different species of life with different wishes and different actions. How the material force is working cannot be explained just on the basis of chemical reaction. A suitable example in this connection is that of the potter and the potter's wheel. The potter's wheel rotates, and several varieties of earthen pots come out. There are many causes for the earthen pots, but the original cause is the potter, who sets a force on the wheel. That force comes by his superintendence. The same idea is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Behind all material action and reaction, there is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna says that everything depends on his energy, and yet he is not everywhere. The pot is produced under certain conditions of action and reaction of material energy. But the potter is not in the pot. In a similar way, the material creation is set up by the Lord, but he remains aloof. As stated in the Vedas, he simply glanced over it and agitation of matter immediately began. In the
Yeah,
Bhagavad
it's a
Gita,
big purport, so we'll go into sections. My dear Dhruva, nimitta matram tatra asid. That the Supreme Lord is uncontaminated by the three modes of material nature. So the three modes of material nature act only on the jiva, right? Also, not all the jivas, only the bewildered jiva, right? So, what to speak of acting on the pure devotee, the modes will not act, neither the Supreme Lord, who is far beyond the three modes of material nature. He is the remote cause of creation and annihilation. And when he, the Lord, gives the impetus, many other causes and effects are produced, and thus the whole universe moves. Just as sometimes you may see the iron dancing, but it's not actually the iron follicles are dancing, it is the magnet which is making the movement, and thus iron appears to dance. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that how the external energy of the Supreme Lord works within the material world is explained in this verse. How the Daivi Maya is working. There is an atheistic philosophy which says that there is nothing called as Supreme Lord or anything like that. The original cause of the creation is the material elements, right? But Prabhupada says here, if the cause of the creation is the material elements, then, just like Prabhupada gives one example of here, that there are two chemicals. And two chemicals, like say H2, hydrogen and oxygen, they will eternally remain in the laboratory in their, boxes. They on themselves will never think, okay, H2 and hydrogen and oxygen will never think, okay, let's combine together. We are getting so bored. You are H2, you are O2. Let's combine together and form water. No, H2 will be there, O2 will be there. But unless there is the external living will of the scientist and creation of suitable PVT, pressure, volume, temperature conditions by the scientist, H2 and O2 will not interact and produce H2O. So although H2 and O2 is enough to produce H2O, what H2 and O2 they lack is the will to combine and the facility under which they can be combined to form the water. And therefore, material nature in itself is not the cause of the creation. Right. Srila Prabhupada gives example of the potter and the potter's wheel and creation of the pots. Now, the wheel is there, mitti is there, water is there, and the potter, and they may remain eternally like that. And there will be no creation of the pot, right? It takes a potter, Kumar, who will come, who will mix mitti with the water, make it into a nice, the dough like that, and then give a force to the wheel will start rotating, and then there will be creation of the pots by the superintendence of the potter. Although mitti, the wheel, water, all existed, but the creation of the pot will take place only when there is active interaction, the force and the guidance by the potter. Prabhupada says the very same idea is explained in Bhagavad Gita. The Lord says that everything depends on him, and yet he is not everywhere. Right? Although creation of the pot depends on the potter, Kumar, pot is not the potter. But creation of pot cannot happen without the potter. And if the pot is the pot, no, pot is not the potter, neither the pot exists in the potter. Like, Prabhupada gives another classic example. Like one will see the shadow. The origin of the shadow is the sunlight. But the shadow doesn't exist in sunlight, right? At the same time, the shadow cannot exist without sunlight, right? So similarly, the interactions of material nature doesn't exist in the Supreme Lord. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.